It is Mike Karolyi backstage in Brooklyn, New York with the Glorious Sons show tonight. And with me, Brett from the Glorious Sons. How are you?
How are you?
I'm doing well. So I'm excited to see you tonight. Just starting this North American run, and so far so good, would you say?
Oh, yeah, it's been great.
So you're in a band with your brother, and I'm sure you get a lot of brother questions. But what I'm curious about is how you inspire each other. How do you and your brother inspire each other?
Well, I never would have picked up a guitar without Jay because he's a lot older than I am. He's like 7 years older than me. So as a kid, he'd babysit me and read me, Zeppelin biographies and I just kind of basically followed him around and did whatever he did. So he definitely inspired me to be a songwriter and a singer. Before I was a singer, he was a singer. Before I was a writer, he was a writer. And I think, Jay definitely probably gets inspired by me just from the, playing with me. Now that I become taking more of the leading role in the songwriting, I think sometimes I still impress him. Sometimes, not always.
That's got to feel good, though, when you do it.
It does feel good, yeah, because he's always been my judge,
Is he a tough critic?
He's not a tough critic. He's more, he's got a 1,000-mile stare. So if you can get him to crack a smile, then you're doing something right.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about the songwriting. You're quite a storyteller. Your lyrics, we're listening to your songs on the way down, and one after another I was picking out is like, wow, that's a great lyric, So
Thanks.
I'm curious for you, what does storytelling give back to you?
I don't know. The way I look at writing is you create this thing from your brain, and it doesn't come out of thin air. It comes from your mind, but in a sense, it does come out of thin air, and it becomes this, real, tangible object that you can keep forever, no matter what, and it's yours. So, I don't really think there's anything like there's no gift like writing in general, or creating something, with your hands, and I think that's just kind of my way of. My way of adding to the world. I don't know what it means, how big it'll get or whatnot, but I know that, when I'm 60, 70, maybe I'll have grandkids and they'll be able to listen to my songs, and hopefully I'll still be writing tons of songs. But yeah, other than that, it's a little bit of therapy.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned, songwriting throughout your life, and hopefully you'll be doing it. But I'm curious about if you could pick one song that you've written to date, any of the songs you've written, but only one, and you're going to put it in this time capsule that's not going to be open for 100 years.
Mm-hmm.
But that song defines the Glorious Sons. So somebody's going to open it 100 years from now, and they're going to hear it, and they're going to go like, that's what that band was all about. Which do you pick?
It's really hard to say because we have a lot of songs that sound differently, especially when you get into sonically how they sound. So, I mean, there's certain aspects of each song that take our identity in a different place and kind of accentuate different people's skill sets, and I think it'd be hard to just choose one song.
But you have to.
I think that I really do believe that Sawed Off Shotgun is a good look into our band because of Jay's really, unique style of playing the guitar. His riff is, I think, one of my favorites. It's just kind of really unique and really dumb in the most perfect way. And I think we struck a good balance of being able to speak honestly about ourselves, but also comment on the world around us, with a unique outlook that I think has been completely missed for one reason or another, you know, in the past 10 years. So, uh, right now, let's just say sawed off shotgun.
Okay,
Yeah.
great answer. So we were listening to a live version of Amigo from, I guess, a couple of years ago. We noticed that some of the lyrics that you had in that live version ended up on a war with a war of anything.
Yeah.
And we're curious that is that like a typical songwriting process for you, where you've got things kicking around for a while and you maybe use them in this live version of a song and then put them into a studio version of a different song later?
Yeah, like a war on everything has like was beating around my head for 2 or 3 years before it ever became a song. Yeah, like there's in certain sets, and I just like to just kind of test things out. I think you were also speaking to the pack the car, call your sister,
Right.
grab a bag of clothes. That was originally a song called Begin. And I just kind of morphed those two together for that song. It all sounds very confusing, but it makes sense in my mind. It's just jumbling around in there, and the best way to kind of explain it is you're just kind of going like this,
Right.
trying to catch things as they kind of just fly by you.
Do you have lists and lists of like lyrics and phrases and things?
Yeah, I got like just, I got my notes here, and then I got notebooks all from here to, I don't know, all over Kingston, basically, in people's houses. There's just a ton of shit. But the good stuff always stays in your mind. I find that you always keep it in mind. A really bad idea usually probably takes too long anyways, or is too hard to come to fruition.
Trying too harder.
Yeah, so, I mean, you can tell.
Mm-hmm. I'm curious what put you on this path. So is there an album or maybe even a song that you heard when you were a kid and you're like, that's something I've got to do?
There was 2 artists, and it was like, I listened to a lot of like heavy rock and roll as a kid. AC/DC, Zeppelin, all the classics. And I got into like grade 9, grade 10, and I was still just listening to that stuff. I listened to a lot of rap music too, and just a lot of like, heavy, angry stuff. And I came across Jackson Browne, and I was in a band at the time, and we'd written like 4 or 5 songs, and I was just kind of putting words in that I thought sounded cool. I wasn't trying to explain myself at all. And then I heard Jackson Browne, and it was this like beautiful, soft voice that sounds pretty much like he's singing with a cold all the time. and it's a man just ripping his guts out and putting them on the table for people to hear. And it just changed my whole outlook on what rock and roll was, because he had songs like Running on Empty, which are like almost like Southern rock classics.
Sure.
But then you hear a song like, The Pretender, and it's like just this like 5.5 minute piano ballad that lands somewhere, in between Billy Joel and the Eagles, maybe.
Yeah, right,
I don't really know.
Mm-hmm. Always reminded me of the Doobie Brothers.
Yeah,
like
yeah. But it just meant so much more than anything I'd ever really heard before. Because obviously Zeppelin, they're great writers, and AC/DC, you can't find better hit writers than that. But he really changed that for me. And then a friend was like, "Do you ever listen to any Springsteen?" And I was like, fuck no. Like, my mom listens to Springsteen. Like,
Right.
Get out of my face, you fool. And he sent me home with an album. And I put it on, and I was doing laundry in my bedroom, and I was like, it was the first thing that I ever actually danced to.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just a stupid little kid dancing in my bedroom to Bruce Springsteen like my mom.
Mm-hmm.
And and it had all the same. It had all the same characteristics of kind of Jackson Browne, that vulnerable storytelling. You know, puke your guts out and bleed, basically.
You've written a lot of lyrics that echo the same for your life, and I wonder if you ever find it kind of odd when somebody's like almost high-fiving you for, like, wow, what a great song, but you've gone through a lot to get to that point. Is that weird for you?
Not really. It feels good when, honestly, like, I really enjoy it when people talk about how much the lyrics mean to them, and I, you know, I don't think we've actually gotten a lot of like critical reception, but for the most part, people who are really, you know, real people who are listening to the music and trying to find it, they tell me that this shit means something to them. So, you know, that never gets old.
Right.
I mean, you hear it from the same person 10 times in one night, and, you know, by the 5th time, you're like, all right, I get it, brother. But, no, that's why you do it, is to reach out to people. That's what we're here to do.
Well, tonight we're in Brooklyn, New York. The other night sold out in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and just starting this North American tour. So we wish you the best of luck.
Thanks a lot.
Time to conquer the USA. What took the USA so long to come around?
Well, I think it's probably has something to do with us being Canadians, and I don't know. There's too many cities and too many people.
That is true, but
too many bands.
2020, the year of the Glorious Sons, for sure. So make sure you go out and get A War on Everything, and man, just best of luck. We wish you all the best.
Thank you.
Brett from the Glorious Sons with Mike Karolyi in Brooklyn, New York. Boom. Thanks, man. Cheers. Cheers to you as well.